In the year 2098, the sky looked peaceful, but space was never silent. Far beyond the stars, something was moving, something watching, and something remembering. At 3:42 a.m., every satellite on Earth picked up the same strange signal, repeating over and over, coming from deep space. It wasn't natural. It wasn't random. It was a message, and it was speaking only one word: Ethan. Scientists in every major space agency froze when they decoded it. Ethan? Who was Ethan? Why was this name traveling across galaxies? The message repeated again, slow and calm: Ethan, followed by strange symbols and coordinates pointing to Earth. But more shocking, the signal was written partly in English. It meant whoever or whatever sent it knew Earth, knew its language, and knew someone named Ethan in a quiet village on the edge of the mountains. A man opened his eyes. He was Ethan. He had lived alone for years, away from the noise, away from the world. People once knew his name, Dr. Ethan Ward, one of the most brilliant astrophysicists of the 2050s. He had once worked on top-secret space programs, exploring wormholes and studying alien life signals. Then, one day, he disappeared. For 3 whole years, no one could find him, and when he returned, he had no memory of where he had been. He quit everything, retired early, and never spoke about it. But now, hearing the signal again, he knew she was coming back. Ethan stood in front of his small radio device, tuned to a private channel only he knew. The same word came again: Ethan, clear and full of emotion. Like a voice from the past. He didn't look scared. He looked sad, she remembered. He whispered. Back in the city, panic had started. News channels were running headlines: alien signal targeting Earth. Who is Ethan? Is this first contact or an attack? The government moved fast, setting up secret meetings, blocking the signal from public airwaves. But it was too late. The signal had already spread across the internet, and in every corner of the world, one question grew louder: who is this Ethan? Meanwhile, agents knocked on Ethan's door. A black car waited outside, engines running. Men in suits with cold expressions. "Dr. Ethan Ward, we need you to come with us," one said, holding out a file with the signal details. Ethan didn't argue. He simply nodded. He already knew why they had come. In the secret underground base, screens showed the same symbol repeating again and again. Scientists tried to decode the symbols after the name, but Ethan already knew. "It's a promise," he said, looking at the pattern. "It means, I'm coming back." Everyone in the room stared at him. "You know who sent this?" the commander asked. Ethan paused, his voice heavy with memory. "She's not human," he said. "But she's not your enemy." The room went silent. Flashbacks hit Ethan like waves. A sky filled with 2 moons, soft silver grass, a strange, warm light, and eyes that didn't belong to Earth. He remembered her name, Alira. She was different. She was beautiful, and she was not from this world. They had met when Ethan crossed into a wormhole during an experiment gone wrong. He landed on a planet no human had ever seen. And for the next few years, she had kept him hidden, safe, and alive. They had talked, laughed, and learned from each other, and slowly they fell in love. But it was forbidden. She was sent to study humans, not love one. Her people found out, and she was forced to send Ethan back to Earth. Before sending him, she wiped his memory to protect him. But now, after all these years, she had returned, not as a spy, not as an enemy, but as someone who made a promise. Outside the base, something appeared in the sky. At first, it looked like a shooting star, but it was too slow, too smooth, and too silent. It was heading straight for Earth. Satellites couldn't track it. Radars couldn't read it. But the signal grew stronger as it approached, and every time it repeated, the name grew louder: Ethan. Back in the base, alarms started to ring. The object was now close, very close, and it was heading toward the mountains. "Is it an attack?" someone asked. "No," Ethan replied, standing up. "It's a reunion." The commander looked confused. A reunion with what? Ethan turned to him, calm, and said one word, her, outside. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere, smooth, quiet, and glowing with a soft blue light. People all over the world looked up in fear, in wonder, in silence, and far above, in that glowing ship, someone looked down, eyes full of memories, full of longing, full of love. She whispered, as if he could hear her across the sky. "I'm here, Ethan." Asterisk. The ship hovered silently above the mountains. No fire, no noise, no weapons, just a soft humming, like a song from a forgotten dream. People across the world watched in fear, but Ethan felt peace. The last time he saw her face, he was being pulled through space against his will. That moment had haunted his soul, even when his memory refused to explain why. But now the truth was returning, piece by piece, in the base below. The mountain's military officers scrambled, satellites were blinded, radars showed nothing, and the ship had no signs of technology Earth could recognize. Yet it was beautiful, smooth like glass, shaped like a teardrop, glowing softly, not threatening. But not familiar either, Dr. Ethan Ward, the commander said. "You said you knew who this is. We need answers." Ethan stared at the ship on the screen, his heart racing quietly. "I remember her," he said, voice soft. "Her name was Alira. 40 years ago. Ethan was part of a secret deep space project, a mission gone wrong. An accident, or maybe fate, pulled his ship through a rift in space. He didn't crash, he arrived. He woke up on a planet with no sun, yet everything glowed. Plants shimmered like silver. The sky was violet, and gravity felt like a soft dream. And then he saw her, tall, graceful, with silver blue eyes that held galaxies. Inside them, her name was Alira. She didn't speak with words at first, only thoughts, feelings, visions, but they learned from each other. She showed him her world. He told her about Earth. What started as curiosity slowly became something more. They laughed, they argued, they explored ancient ruins and silent waterfalls. She wasn't just studying him. She was falling for him, and Ethan, lost in a world that wasn't his, found something stronger than home. He found love. But her world had rules, strict ones. Her kind observed other species, but never touched, never interfered. Alira broke those rules. Her people found out. They gave her two choices: return Ethan to his world, or lose everything. She chose Ethan. She put him in a capsule, kissed his forehead, and said 4 words he never forgot, even when his memory was taken. "I will come back." Then darkness, then Earth, and then nothing until now. Why now? The commander asked, watching the ship glow in the sky. "She promised," Ethan replied. "And she always keeps her promises." The signal stopped. The ship stopped too, floating just a few meters above the mountain lake near Ethan's old cabin. Everything was still, and then a bridge of light extended from the ship to the ground. A figure walked down, not fast, not slow, as if time didn't matter. She looked exactly as Ethan remembered. Not a single line on her face, not a moment older, because time didn't touch her kind the way it did humans. But her eyes, they changed. They carried sorrow, joy, and a storm of memories. She stopped at the edge of the water. She looked straight at Ethan, even though they were miles apart. Somehow, she knew exactly where he stood. And she smiled. Inside the base, silence filled the room. No one knew what to do. Was this contact? Was this love? Or was this the beginning of something Earth wasn't ready for? "She came back," Ethan said, barely breathing. The commander shook his head. "She came for you." "Yes," Ethan whispered, "but not just me." Everyone looked at him. Ethan turned slowly. "She's not alone." Outside, high above, the clouds shimmered. Not with light, but with shadows. More ships, dozens of them, hidden behind cloaks, now revealing themselves like whales rising from the deep. They made no sound, but the earth felt their weight. People everywhere dropped to their knees, some in fear, some in awe. The stars had finally answered. But no one knew what the answer meant. Alira raised her hand to the sky. The other ships remained still, She was leading them. She had come to fulfill a promise, but also to deliver a warning. Her people had seen what Earth had become, and they were afraid of its power, of its violence, of its potential to either save or destroy everything beyond its reach. Ethan closed his eyes. Memories returned like lightning. Moments with Alira. Secret conversations under glowing trees, her voice saying, "If your world ever threatens mine, I'll have to choose." Was that time now? Was she here as a lover or a judge? He didn't know, but he had to find out, and this time he wouldn't forget. The world held its breath. Above the mountains, where clouds once drifted in peace, now hung silence heavier than thunder. Not just one, but many ships floated above Earth, like stars torn from the sky. But the one that landed near the lake, that one mattered most. That one held her. Military bases across the globe turned red with alerts. Presidents, generals, scientists, all eyes were on the sky. Some wanted to fire, some wanted to talk, but no one truly understood what was happening. Only Ethan knew, and he didn't want war. He wanted answers. He wanted her in the mountains. The air shimmered with static energy. The light bridge from the ship glowed softly, casting reflections on the water like ripples of another world. Alira stood at the end of the bridge, still quiet, watching the trees, the lake, the sky, her eyes bright as distant moons. Searched the land like a lover, remembering a song she hadn't heard in years. Then she walked forward, one step at a time, as if Earth might disappear if she moved too fast. Ethan left the base without waiting for permission. They tried to stop him. They failed. You don't stop a man when destiny calls his name through the stars. He walked toward the lake, past soldiers, past cameras, past the noise. And when he reached the hill above the shore, he saw her. She saw him too. And everything else disappeared. 40 years had passed, but her face held no time, her body no weight of age. She looked at Ethan like no time had passed, but he had changed. His hair was gray now. His hands trembled not from fear, but from memory. Still, his eyes, those were the same, and that's what she came for. Not the man's body, but the soul that once sat beside her, beneath twin moons, speaking of stars and oceans and music and dreams. She stepped closer. The soldiers raised their weapons. Ethan lifted his hand and shouted, "Don't!" Everyone froze. Alira stopped too. The moment held like a breath no one could release. Then gently, she raised her hand, palm open, toward Ethan. A shimmer of light moved between them, and he remembered, not in pieces, but in full, every moment, every word, every kiss, every goodbye. Tears filled his eyes. But he didn't look away. "Hello, Alira," he said. Voice breaking, she smiled. "I missed your voice." The silence broke with the scream of engines. Jets flew overhead, Earth's response team. Guns locked, orders shouted, fingers on triggers. Ethan stood in front of Alira, arms wide. "She's not here to hurt us," he shouted. "She came back for me." The commander's voice boomed through a speaker. "Step away, Dr. Ethan. She's a classified threat." "No," Ethan said. "She's a promise." Above them, the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with shadow ships, dozens of alien crafts now fully visible, arranged in a perfect circle around Earth's atmosphere, like watchers, like judges, or maybe like a council. Alira looked up. Her voice was calm, but her words shook the air. "They've come to see if Earth is still safe." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. She turned to him, eyes filled with sorrow. "They're not here to welcome you," she said. "They're here to decide if your species is allowed to continue." A wave of silence hit the mountain like thunder. The soldiers looked at each other. No one moved, no one spoke. Ethan's heart sank. "But why?" he whispered. Alira touched his hand gently. "Because humans have grown strong," she said. "Too strong, too fast. You build weapons that can destroy planets. You send machines to explore space, but not your hearts. You fight each other more than you understand each other. But You also love, she added softly. You hope, you dream, you create. That's why I came back, to speak for you, in the skies. A massive ship slowly descended, larger than cities, glowing with ancient patterns and living metal. It stopped just above the clouds. The sky turned gold and violet, like the beginning of a storm that wasn't made of rain. A voice echoed across the earth, not loud, but heard in every ear, in every language. Bring forth the human, the one who was chosen. Let his words decide the fate of Earth. Ethan looked at Alira. She nodded. He turned to the sky. Fear and courage fighting in his chest. I guess they want to meet me, he said, trying to smile. Alira held his hand. Not meet, she whispered. Judge. Asterisk, the sky above Earth had changed. It was no longer blue, it was silver, violet, and gold, lit by ships that didn't belong to this world. At the center of it all, the largest ship waited, unmoving. It didn't fire weapons. It didn't speak again. It just waited. And somehow, that was more terrifying than war. Ethan stood in the middle of the mountain valley. Beside him, Alira, calm, silent, unreadable. Her hand held his. But her eyes watched the sky. He could feel her body was tense. Not with fear, but with something worse, conflict. She had returned for love, but she had brought judgment with her. Back at the base, the commander's voice echoed through the control room. We've intercepted a new transmission from the mothership, he said, but it's not directed at us. The technician turned pale. It's speaking to her. Everyone looked at Alira through the cameras. She stood still, eyes closed. She was listening, in her mind. Voices from her world spoke like thunder inside dreams. Alira, they said, you are too close to the subject. Have broken the boundary. You were meant to observe, not feel. You were warned, and now the council decides. Alira responded without moving her lips. Her thoughts were sharp but full of pain. Humans are not perfect, she said, but neither are we. I gave you reports, I gave you truth, but you never listened to the part that mattered. They have love, they have fire, they have something we lost, they can become more. But the voice replied coldly, or they can become a threat. Ethan watched her carefully. Her body stood like stone, but a tear slipped down her cheek. He stepped closer, whispering, what are they saying to you? Alira opened her eyes, glowing faintly now. They want to erase Earth, she said. Ethan froze. Erase? He asked. Yes, she said. Remove it before it becomes something dangerous to the galaxy. They believe humans are unstable. In another part of the sky, smaller alien ships began scanning Earth's defense systems. They weren't attacking, not yet, but it was clear. They were collecting data, deciding, preparing. Ethan looked at Alira with disbelief. You said they admired humans. They did, she said softly, once, but now they fear you. Years ago, when Alira first returned from Earth, she tried to convince her people that humans were worth protecting. She showed them laughter, music, art. She showed them Ethan. But the alien council, ancient, cold, logical, only saw the wars, the weapons, the endless history of destruction. They voted against her, told her to stay away from Earth, but she disobeyed because she couldn't forget, because she couldn't let the one she loved die without knowing the truth. Now her disobedience had a price. Ethan stood tall, angry now. You used me, he said. Alira's face turned pale. No, she said quickly. I didn't. Came back for you. I came back to save you, but to save you, I had to bring them. I thought, I hoped, they would listen if they saw you again. Silence fell between them, not cold, just full of weight. The kind of silence before a storm. Then the ground began to shake, not from bombs, but from energy, a beam of light descending from the mothership. A voice followed, not angry, not loud, just final. Bring him. Soldiers backed away as the beam touched the ground, forming a circle of gold and blue light. A portal, a door to the council. Alira looked at Ethan. They want to hear you speak, she said. They want your truth before they decide. Ethan's hands shook. I'm not ready, he said. No one is, she replied. But if you don't go, they will erase Earth without another word. Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding like a drum. But Alira, he said, turning. To her, she looked at him, eyes soft. If they force you to choose between me and them, what will you do? He asked. Alira didn't answer right away, because she didn't know, and that was the real danger, high above. In a room made of light and memory, the alien council waited, not with anger, not with hate, but with silence cold. And curious soon, a human would stand before them, one voice, to speak for an entire species. And that voice belonged to a man who once fell in love with the stars, and now might die beneath them. Ethan stepped into the light. It didn't burn, it didn't pull, it simply accepted him. 1 second he was standing on Earth, the next he was somewhere else, not in space, not in a ship, but in a place that felt older than time. He stood on a platform of smooth black stone, floating in a sea of stars. Around him, nothing and everything existed, and across from him, the council. They weren't like Alira, they didn't look human. They didn't look like any species Earth had ever imagined. They were shapes of light and thought, always shifting, always watching. But Ethan could feel it. They were alive and they were powerful. A voice echoed in his mind. Human, speak. Why should your kind survive? Ethan swallowed hard. He had faced death before, but this was different. This was judgment. He took a breath and began. I know what you've seen, he said. Wars, greed, pollution. We destroy more than we create, and we fight more than we forgive. I won't deny that. But we also dream, he said, stepping closer. We imagine peace. We create music. We paint the stars before we even reach them. We fall in love. He looked around. You think we're dangerous, and maybe we are, but danger doesn't mean evil. It means potential. Give us time, give us a reason to be better, and we will. The council didn't speak at first. Then, the voice returned. You love one of ours. That is forbidden. Ethan nodded. I know, he said. But love doesn't follow rules. It just happens. And when it does, you can either run from it or fight for it. Back on Earth, Alira stood at the edge of the lake. She could hear him, not through sound, but through connection, through the bond they had never truly lost. She felt his courage, his fear, his truth, and she knew they wouldn't listen to words alone. Above the Earth, the other ships began to move. The council was preparing its weapon, not a bomb, but a fold, a cosmic erasure, a method to make Earth vanish without a sound, without pain, without warning. Alira's eyes turned bright. She ran toward the glowing beam again. Soldiers tried to stop her. They failed. You can't stop someone running toward the one they love. She entered the portal and vanished into light, inside the star chamber. Ethan felt her presence before he saw her. She landed beside him, breath sharp, eyes blazing. You're going to destroy them, she said, looking at the council. But I won't let you. You speak out of emotion, the council replied. I speak out of truth, she said. You fear humans because they remind you of what we used to be. Wild, imperfect, full of chaos, but also wonder. She stepped in front of Ethan. If Earth must die, then I die with it. The chamber shifted. The stars around them spun faster. The council's glow dimmed. For the first time it hesitated, not because of fear, but because of sacrifice. One of the beings floated closer, a low voice reached their minds. You would give your life for this species? Yes, Alira said, without shaking. Then you are no longer one of us, the voice replied. A pause, a silence. You are more. And then the chamber faded. The platform dissolved. Ethan and Alira stood on the mountain again. The sky was clear. The ships were gone. The light had vanished like a dream fading at dawn. Ethan looked up, breath caught in his throat. Did they change their mind? He asked. Alira nodded. They didn't understand love, she said, until they saw what it could cost. They spared Earth, But there's a price, she added quietly. What is it? Ethan asked. She looked at him with eyes full of sadness and light. I can't stay, she said. They allowed you to live, but not with me. If I stay, they'll come back, and this time they won't leave. Ethan felt the weight of her words. She had fought for him, saved his world, and now she had to leave it forever. I would go with you, he said. I know, she whispered, but this time, you need to stay. She touched his face, her hand warm, soft, glowing faintly with starlight. One day, she said, when your kind has grown, when the stars no longer fear you, we'll meet again. I'll wait, Ethan said, his voice breaking. You always did. She smiled. She stepped back into the light. Her body shimmered like a star disappearing behind the moon. Then she was gone, and the mountain was quiet again. But the world had changed, because someone had loved enough to speak, and someone else had loved enough to listen. No war began, no weapons fired, and yet humanity stood on the edge of extinction, not by fire, but by vote, in a place beyond time, where stars whispered like wind. A council of ancient minds gathered again. This was not a battlefield. This was a courtroom built from memory and light, and Earth was on trial. Ethan stood alone beneath the great ring of thought beings. No walls, no sky, only a sea of stars above and a mirror of galaxies below. He felt like a shadow standing before suns. Still, he did not step back. The voice of the council echoed without sound. You speak for your kind. Then your kind shall be measured. Images filled the sky around him. Not words, not arguments, but moments, scenes from Earth's past and present, raw and unedited. Child crying beside a bombed-out building. A soldier dropping his gun to carry an injured enemy. A forest burning. A mother planting a tree with her son. A protest, a poem, a hug, a punch, a healing, a betrayal, you see? One of the minds whispered, chaos, pain. They build their own end, Ethan raised his voice. Yes, we do, he said. But not only that, we build homes. We build songs, we build hope, and when we fall, we try. Again, another voice replied. You destroy your own planet. You poison your oceans. You wage war over belief. Ethan looked up. We are still young, he said, but we learn, we change. Not fast enough, the council sighed. Then, Alira stepped forward. She had returned. Not by rule, but by choice. She stood beside Ethan. A light glowing from her chest, the mark of exile. She had given up her world for love. Now she stood to defend his. I watched him cry when a bird died in his hands, she said. I saw him give water to creatures on a planet that wasn't his. He taught me what it means to care even when no one sees. That's what makes humans dangerous, not their hate, but their heart. The chamber fell silent. The council floated higher. They didn't argue, they calculated, they remembered. Not just Earth's actions, but their own fear at last. A symbol appeared in the sky, a great golden eye, open, watching, judging. The final vote had begun. One by one, the minds cast their decision, not with words, but with pulses of light. Blue for survival, red for erasure. Ethan held his breath. So did the world. Blue, blue, red, red, blue, red, red, blue. The lights flickered like stars trying to find their rhythm until only one vote remained, the elder. The oldest being among them, a mind so vast it remembered galaxies being born. It had not spoken once. Now it pulsed once. Bright and blue, Earth would live, but not untouched. A voice filled the chamber. The human world will survive, but it will be watched. You are on the edge of becoming either saviors or destroyers. We will not vote again. The stars around them softened. The council faded into the dark, leaving only Ethan and Alira behind, floating in the silence of the stars. You did it, she whispered. No, Ethan said. We did. He looked at her glowing chest, the mark of exile still burning faintly. You can't go back, can you? He asked. She shook her head. But I also can't stay, she said. Not yet. A new ship appeared. Not a weapon, not a throne. Just a vessel shaped like a question. She turned toward it. "Where will you go?" He asked. "To find others like me," she said. "Those who still believe in love." She touched his hand one last time. No kiss, no goodbye, just presence, just knowing. Then she stepped into the ship and rose into the sky as Ethan landed back. On Earth, people looked to him for answers. He gave them only this. "They gave us a second chance," he said, "and second chances are never free." The stars were quiet again. No ships in the sky, no glowing beams. Just the sun rising over the mountains like nothing had happened. But the world knew better. It had changed. The story of the alien girl and the man she loved had spread like fire. First, through whispers, then through screens, then through history books. Some called it myth. Others called it warning. But Ethan called it memory. He never spoke much after that day. He returned to his cabin near the lake. The same place where she had landed. The same place where she had left. But he wasn't alone, not really. He was carrying something more powerful than any alien ship. A promise. Years passed. Nations stopped building bigger bombs. They started building bridges instead. Schools added new subjects, not just science, but empathy, not because they were forced to, but because someone had watched them from the stars and chose to let them live. Children grew up asking, did he really love her that much? And elders answered, more than most love themselves. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the universe, that answer echoed back. Ethan aged like all humans do. Hair like snow, hands like old maps, but his eyes never dimmed. They still searched the skies every evening, just in case, just in hope. One night, the wind was still, the lake was calm, and Ethan sat on his porch, watching the stars like old friends. A soft humming began in the air, not loud, not bright, just familiar. He stood slowly, heart beating faster than his body allowed, and there, at the edge of the water, a soft blue light appeared. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't her, it was a message, spoken. Through light, through memory, through time, and it said, "We are ready, you may come." Ethan smiled, not with joy, but with peace. He had lived long. He had waited longer, and now the universe had opened its hand again. But this time, it was offering, not judging. He wrote a letter that night. Simple, just a few words. Tell them, it was always love. By morning, he was gone. No trace, no ship, just empty shoes near the lake and a sky full of stars that somehow felt closer. Years later, a new ship appeared, but not one of war, one of welcome, and inside it, humans traveled for the first time beyond the silent edge of the solar system. They didn't carry weapons. They carried stories. At the heart of this new era was one old story about a man who remembered a love the stars tried to erase, and a girl who returned to keep her promise. They say she's still out there, not in exile, but in purpose, visiting other worlds, searching for voices like Ethan's, voices that speak softly but carry the weight of something greater than logic, faith. And when humans finally stepped onto that first alien planet, the stars above them didn't shine like strangers anymore. They shined like witnesses. Back on Earth, beside the same lake, a statue now stands. Two figures carved in stone, reaching for each other but never quite touching. Between their hands, a single word, choice. Because in the end, that's what saved them. Not power, not knowledge, not fear, but the choice to love when it was forbidden, to speak when silence was safer, to hope when it was easier to give up. And so, the universe moved on, not with war, but with wonder, and Earth remained, a little flawed, a little wild, but alive and free.